Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. At UFC 291 in the co-main event, we got Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira gets it done via controversial 29-28 split decision. And I already made a dedicated post-fight for the full card for UFC 291, but I wanted to make a dedicated video for the co-main event after I had an opportunity to rewatch it, because I want to discuss whether or not Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira was a robbery. Did Alex Pereira get a robbery win at UFC 291 over Jan Blachowicz? I've had an opportunity to rewatch it twice now, and we're going to discuss it in this video. Now, let's talk about my live reaction to this fight. So my live reaction to this fight, first round, Jan Blachowicz goes out there, shoots in on a takedown immediately. They end up clinching up against the fence. Pereira's kind of looking for a guillotine, but he really doesn't have the angle. Eventually, Jan Blachowicz gets him down, takes the back, gets the body triangle in, and starts looking for the rear naked choke. And Pereira's kind of on one knee and not really, able to try to get out of this body triangle. He's just kind of stuck there up against the fence. But there's opportunities for Pereira. He's grabbing the 2-on-1 and he's kind of shaking Jan off a little bit. It looks like a couple times Jan Blachowicz is going to end up falling off the side or off over the top. And Jan just readjusts each and every time and just cements his position on the back, lands some decent ground and pound, and looks for rear naked chokes over and over and over again. Isn't able to get it, but clearly wins the first round 10-9. He did not do enough damage to warrant a 10-8. I know some people were saying 10-8. If Jan would have been landing ground and pound throughout the entire round and doing some serious damage, you could have went with a 10-8. But with what we saw, absolutely not. Clear 10-9 round for Jan Blachowicz. The second round. Now, the second round, when I watched it live, I thought it was more competitive than the commentary team was making it out to be. The commentary team was making it out to be that Alex Pereira absolutely destroyed him. And when I watched this live, I saw Alex Pereira win the early exchanges, but it was kind of close. Pereira was landing some good shots and some good calf kicks. And then you see Jan Blachowicz get a takedown, hold Pereira down for maybe a minute, but do absolutely no damage with it. Alex Pereira scoots to the cage, makes his way up. And then for the last maybe minute and a half, minute and 45, Alex Pereira is just walking forward, landing leg kicks, landing jabs. Jan has an occasional strike that he lands, but Jan is just completely gassed. He's backing up against the fence. He's shelling up. Pereira's landing good shots. Now, this round was pretty uncontroversial as well. It was more competitive than the first round, obviously, but round two was clearly Alex Pereira. So you have 1-1 going into the third. So it really comes down to the third round. How did I score the third round live? And then we're going to discuss how I scored it after I rewatched it. The third round is a tricky round, is a very tricky round, because Jan Blachowicz looked so exhausted in the third round. I mean, he was huffing and puffing, he was leaning over, but he would have short bursts where he would, rush forward and land a couple combinations and land hard combinations. There was one combination he landed in the third round that honestly, it snapped Alex Pereira's head back a couple times. It was like a 3 or 4 punch combo that he landed. But basically, early in the round, you had Pereira pumping the jab to the body. Pereira landed some more of the calf kicks. And then Jan would have some of these big shots, but he would also land a couple calf kicks here and there, a jab to the body. I think he landed 1 or 2 jabs to the body. And then right before the takedown, you had Pereira land 2 really solid jabs. One kind of snaps the head back of Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz leaps in, lands a hard left hand. And then there's a takedown from Jan. After the takedown from Jan, he landed like 1 good ground and pound shot initially when he went down. And then he kind of landed a couple very small shots to the body, and then the ones upstairs were halfway blocked and really weren't any power to begin with anyway. So Jan Blachowicz kind of just lays on him a bit for the last minute of the fight. And the third round I thought was close, but I thought Jan Blachowicz did more damage earlier in the round. I know that Pereira, it seemed to me, I don't know exactly, I didn't count every single strike. It seemed to me that Pereira landed more strikes in the third round, but I thought that Jan Blachowicz landed the more damaging strikes. He landed harder punches. He landed good leg kicks that affected Pereira as well. He went shin to shin multiple times. And then, even if you want to say it was even going into the last minute, because it was pretty close, but I thought Jan did more damage, then you have to go to the next scoring criteria, which is effective grappling. Jan got that takedown at the end. So basically what I had Jan barely out damaging Alex Pereira in the third round. And then even if you want to say it was even, I think you could make the argument that it was even. I thought Okay, bare minimum, it was even. But then Jan got the takedown. So Jan takes the third round. So on my scorecard, I had it 29-28 for Jan. And I honestly thought, I didn't call it a robbery. I don't think it was a robbery. But, it was getting pretty close. I'm like, Jan won that third round. I really thought Jan won that third round. And the first two are pretty uncontroversial. First round to Jan, you have to be crazy to score it for anyone else. Second round for Alex Pereira. Outstruck him in the second round. And then the third round was the round that was very close. Now, when I went back and rewatched this fight, basically the first and second round, exactly the same as I remember them. The second round was a little bit more for Pereira than I initially thought. I thought Jan had a couple more moments, but he really didn't in that second round. And then the third round was just slightly different. I had a slightly different opinion for the third round. The third round was razor close because first off, delete the takedown. Just forget about the takedown for right now. Who won those striking exchanges for the first, I think it was 4 minutes. I think that he got the takedown like the last minute and 10 seconds, somewhere along those lines. Who won those striking exchanges? There is no doubt in my mind that Pereira landed more shots. He threw a lot of leg kicks, but so did Jan. Jan threw it, not a lot. He didn't throw a lot, but Jan threw a couple leg kicks as well. Okay, Pereira landed a couple solid jabs. Jan landed like one or two solid jabs as well. And then you really have to start really just splitting hairs. And you're like, okay, Pereira landed a couple jabs to the body, but Jan landed like one or two as well. And then you had a couple like takedowns from Jan where they kind of clinched up for a second and Pereira landed a couple, like two knees, but they weren't significant enough to really matter. And then you had Jan's flurries. Jan had like two good flurries in the third round. And then right before the takedown, he landed a really good leaping left hook on Pereira. So when I rewatched it, I completely excluded. There's no way it was a robbery, which I kind of already felt that way live, but I thought, okay, it's almost there. It's almost, had Jan landed a couple more shots, it would have been a robbery. But for me, it wasn't a robbery live. And when I rewatched it, it wasn't a robbery. But I thought Jan Blachowicz had that third round. Now, it was very close, and I don't think you're crazy for scoring that third round for Alex Pereira. But it basically comes down to, were Alex Pereira's jabs to the body and his calf kicks, were they worth more than some of the big shots upstairs that Jan Blachowicz landed with some of his combinations? And Jan Blachowicz, even, I forgot to mention, in one of the combinations, he ended with a good body kick. So I really just thought those exchanges for Jan Blachowicz, he landed the heavier shots. I think he landed the heavier shots. He did more damage. At one point, I don't want to say he wobbled Pereira by any means, but he landed a couple good shots where I felt like, okay, the way Pereira kind of responded to that, it was like, okay, Pereira might actually be a little bit stung here. But Jan Blachowicz was just so gassed in this round, he didn't have any real output. He didn't have a crazy amount of output. So let's say Pereira threw 10 more strikes or 5 more strikes. He threw a little bit more, but Jan did more damage. And then you have the takedown at the end where Jan really didn't really land all that much. He landed one good shot once he took him down. I think if Jan would have gotten a little bit more busy with the ground and pound, I think it would have been uncontroversial, and I think it would have been a brutal robbery if it would have went to Pereira. But I think it would have been uncontroversial. The third round should have went to Jan if he just did a little bit more. But I still think this was Jan's fight, and I think the commentary was atrocious. And I believe, and I haven't really got a true feel for this yet, but I believe the masses are going to side with Alex Pereira because the commentary in this fight was absolutely atrocious. It was horrible. Joe Rogan, DC, and John Anik were acting like Pereira was dominating the fight from the second round on. They were acting like the third round was a dominant win for Alex Pereira when it was like razor close. I'm watching it live. I'm like, this is back and forth. And then meanwhile, Rogan and DC are acting like, oh yeah, Jan's got to do something here. Oh, he got him down, but he's got to do something. And then they say, oh, well, he took him down, but he didn't do any damage. Yeah, but he did damage on the feet beforehand. So I think Jan won this fight. I think he won 29-28, but I don't think it was a robbery. Jan gassed out in this fight, whether it be elevation, whether it be age, whether it be the amount of grappling he did, especially in that first round. Jan's not a guy that's just taking guys down and getting the back and getting the body triangle and then shooting on takedowns every single round. He's not that guy. He's not a grappler. He's a striker. So I think a combination of the elevation combined with the fact that Jan was grapple heavy in this fight, I think it's what made him gas out in this fight. And in the third round, I really truly believe the two judges that gave it to Alex Pereira, because two judges gave Alex Pereira round 2 and 3. One judge gave Jan Blachowicz rounds 1 and 3, which I think was the correct scorecard. So I do think it was a bad decision, but again, it's not a robbery. But I really think what lost in that third round was the body language. Jan, when he wasn't throwing, looked like he was about to fall over. He was hunched over. He was breathing heavily. When he did throw, some of his combinations looked slow. I don't know how. Honestly, if you delete Alex Pereira from the equation, let's say I didn't know he was fighting Alex Pereira, and I'm looking at Jan and the way he's throwing some of these combinations and leading with his hands down half the time, I'm like, Alex Pereira would easily KO this guy, but he wasn't able to because he was worried about the takedown and he was worried about the shots coming back from Jan, and also he was getting tired as well. So I think Pereira really dodged a bullet here because I think he lost this fight, but ultimately it was not a robbery, and Jan has nobody to blame but himself. If he did not gas out, I have no doubt he wins this fight, because if he didn't gas out, he would have controlled him at the end of the second round. He took him down midway through the second round. He would have held him down in the second round. If he didn't gas out, he would have been able to take him down in the third round, because Alex Pereira's takedown defense, again, the commentary team, oh, Alex Pereira's takedown defense is much improved. I can't believe this. Wait a second. How many times did he get taken down? He got taken down 3 times in 3 rounds. How many shots did Jan Blachowicz shoot? I think he shot 5 times. I might be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure he shot like 5 times. Because I think he shot, I don't know. I think he shot about 5 times. That's what I think, because he shot twice in the 5th round, or the 5th round, twice in the 3rd round, or actually, I think he shot 3 times in the 3rd round. Either way, Jan completed like 75%, 80% of his takedowns, depending on what the actual number is. And some of those shots in the 3rd round were kind of like half-hearted attempts. He didn't really try to get them. And then when he wanted to take down in the 3rd round, when he just ducked under a shot, grabbed the single leg, easily took him down. So I don't really see that vast improvement from Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira made Israel Adesanya look like Khabib Nurmagomedov in their first MMA fight. Alex Pereira was getting out-grappled by Andreas Michailidis in his UFC debut. And then Jan Blachowicz is a striker. He is a striker. Jan Blachowicz does not have great grappling. Okay, he has better grappling than Alex Pereira. He does not have great grappling. Jan Blachowicz is primarily a kickboxer, and he got Pereira down and took his back early. Now, fair enough. Alex Pereira was able to defend the rear naked choke, but he was helpless once Jan got off his back. At no point in time was he close to being out of it, outside of maybe shaking him off the side because of bad technique by Jan Blachowicz. So I really think basically what happened here, the UFC's pushing Alex Pereira. The commentary team already had this preconceived notion in their head. The body language of Jan Blachowicz didn't help. So now everyone's just going to side with Alex Pereira, I believe. And I do think Jan won this fight. Again, I don't think it was a robbery. But Alex Pereira, I know he's a fan favorite. I like Alex Pereira. I think it's better for the division that Alex Pereira won this fight. But Alex Pereira is so overrated. He is completely overrated. Jan Blachowicz, a 40-year-old man, almost beat him. Almost beat him. And he was gassed out at elevation. He was gassed out at elevation against a guy who's not even a striker. I mean, not even a grappler in Jan Blachowicz, who's primarily a striker. Jan was able to out-grapple him. And then I start thinking about future fights in the division. I know people are fantasizing Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. The shots that Alex Pereira took from Jan Blachowicz tonight, if Jiri Prochazka lands those, he's sleeping Alex Pereira badly. And I know Alex Pereira was tired too because of the elevation. But let's look at the rest of the light heavyweight division. Okay, so Alex Pereira has a reasonable chance against Jamal Hill. He has a reasonable chance against Jiri Prochazka. I don't think he beats either one of those guys. Jamal Hill has very good grappling. So does Jiri Prochazka. Plus, they both have power and they both have good striking. And they're both younger and faster than Jan Blachowicz. But he can win those fights. Let's take a look at the rest of the division. Magomed Ankalaev. There's no way Alex Pereira is winning that fight. Magomed Ankalaev literally 10-8 at Jan Blachowicz on the ground. And I know MMA math isn't everything. Alex Pereira is not winning that fight unless he gets a lucky KO early. Okay, then you get to Jan Blachowicz. He just beat him split decision. Alexander Rakic. Alexander Rakic is a massive light heavyweight. He has very good striking and very good grappling. I think he out-grapples Alex Pereira easily, and I think he can kickbox with him as well. Nikita Krylov at number 5. I think Nikita Krylov beats Alex Pereira. I think he out-grapples him. Nikita Krylov is having a career resurgence. Number 6, Johnny Walker, is where Alex Pereira starts to have some success. I think he can KO Johnny Walker, but if Johnny Walker mixes in the grappling, I think Johnny Walker beats him too. So people are saying like, oh, Alex Pereira with this successful light heavyweight debut, what I saw in this light heavyweight debut, I think Alex Pereira needs to go back to 185 quick and pray for that trilogy against Israel Adesanya, because the grappling is terrible. The grappling has not improved. He trains with Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira could still beat him. Old man Glover Teixeira would beat Alex Pereira right now, in my opinion. So I don't know. I feel like people are just overrating the skill set. And to be quite honest, this fight in general, both guys look terrible. I wasn't impressed with either guy. Jan Blachowicz, he looked his age finally. He really looked his age. He was gassed badly. He was gassed, especially in that second round. I mean, if he didn't get that minute in between rounds, he might have been finished in the third round. But the third round, he had some moments. He would be gassed again. He would have another moment. He'd be gassed again. And then he finally got a takedown. And he was so gassed that he just laid on him and didn't throw any shots. And that cost him the fight. That cost Jan Blachowicz the fight. He threw a couple shots on the ground. We're maybe talking about an actual decision win for Jan Blachowicz and not just speculating. Was it a robbery? Was it a robbery? He might have actually won the fight. But honestly, I'm not impressed with Alex Pereira at all. He's getting lit up by old man Jan Blachowicz. He's getting taken down with ease by Jan Blachowicz, even gassed in the third round. The cardio, I don't want to talk too badly about Alex Pereira's cardio, even though I'm talking about Jan Blachowicz cardio, because he was at elevation. This was his first fight at 205. So we can give him a little bit of a break there. We've seen him go 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya, but that's a kickboxing match. That's not a grappling match. So we don't really know, but we'll give him a pass on the cardio. But overall, if you have the threat of the takedown, you can beat Alex Pereira. You can beat him. Now, I know Jamal Hill's coming off an injury. I know Yuri Prochazka's coming off an injury. Maybe that favors Alex Pereira. But if Pereira fights Magomed Ankalaev at any point in time, Magomed Ankalaev is your new champion, almost guaranteed. Now, can Pereira improve? He's 36 years old. I don't think all of a sudden he's going to become Khabib Nurmagomedov. I don't think he's going to. So I think the grappling's always going to be a massive hole in his game. And we saw how tentative he was tonight. He didn't throw a whole lot of shots. He didn't open up too much. He opened up a little bit in that second round, but he was tentative. Even when Jan was gassed out up against the fence, Pereira's just kind of poking him with a jab, and then he threw like 1 or 2 big shots. And then in the third round, I think Pereira threw like 2 big shots the whole round. Neither one of them landed. He landed neither one of those big shots, so he was just kind of jabbing to the body and throwing that little calf kick that he throws with no telegraph. So basically, if you think Alex Pereira has a massive future in the light heavyweight division, don't get me wrong. He might be able to get Yuri because Yuri gets wild and crazy. I think Yuri slumps him. I think Yuri slumps him bad. And I think Yuri can mix in the grappling even if he can't strike with Alex Pereira, but I think Yuri can. I think Yuri can. Now, Yuri does get hit quite a bit, so he could get slapped. But for me, I think this was the worst case scenario for Alex Pereira. I think this was a horrible performance. I get it. He's coming to 205. I want to give him all the excuses in the world. And maybe we have to take that all into account. It's his first fight at 205. Jan Blachowicz is still very good even at 40 years old, former champion. And the fact that he dealt with the grappling and, he didn't get submitted in the first round is definitely a victory. But overall, looking through this fight, outside of surviving, I really don't have much more to compliment Alex Pereira on. I know he's an elite striker. We already knew that. But he's going to lose to some of these grapplers in the division. He's going to lose to some of these younger guys. I think Jamal Hill beats him. I think Yuri I've already went through the list. I don't know why I'm doing it again. But was it ultimately a robbery? I do not believe it was a robbery. I think the third round was close enough, but I still do believe. I think it has to be egregious to call it a robbery. I think there's no, you know what I mean? You have to have a third round similar to the first round for Jan Blachowicz to call it a robbery or something, somewhere in between there. But as it stands right now, I think Jan Blachowicz won this fight. I would say 75% to 25%. That's the way I feel. I just feel like Jan landed the more damaging shots. Plus, he had the takedown. So even if you want to say it was even on damage, you go to effective grappling, and therefore you score that third round for Jan Blachowicz. But ultimately, it's better for the division. I like some of these matchups. I think Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira is kind of a fun matchup to think about. But for me, I think he loses a lot of these fights at 205. And I think Alex Pereira is getting pushed by the UFC. I think Joe Rogan is an Alex Pereira. He talks about Alex Pereira like he talks about Ronda Rousey back in the day. He might shed a tear watching Pereira fight. But overall assessment on the performance, I think Jan Blachowicz showing his age, horrible performance. I think Alex Pereira showing his, inexperienced, horrible performance. Now, granted, can he improve? Yes, he can, but I still think it was a horrible performance. But ultimately, it was not a robbery, even though I thought Jan Blachowicz took rounds 1 and round 3. He should have got it 29-28. One judge had it correct, but ultimately Alex Pereira gets the split decision and will most likely be fighting for a light heavyweight belt in the near future. I don't know if they're going to do Yuri Prochazka, Magomed Ankalaev later this year for the title, but if not, they might do Yuri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira maybe December this year for the light heavyweight title, and then you have the whole potential Israel Adesanya storyline if he decides to move up, if Alex Pereira is able to win. So that'll be super interesting to keep an eye on. And also, this was his first fight at 205, so we kind of have to give him a little bit of a pass. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Was this fight a robbery? If not, who did you have winning? Even if it wasn't a robbery, who did you score this fight for? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.